Here we go now, baby. Joe and Jingles coming at you with our 9 best bets for Sunday afternoons NFL action. Before we get into that action, let me remind you, please hit that like button right down there. Make sure you are subscribed to the Covers YouTube channel. Now then, let us get right into the action. Let's start things off with the game everybody is talking about. Of course, it is the Indianapolis Colts in Tennessee to take on the Titans. Maybe not a beautiful game, but I think a beautiful betting opportunity on this one to back the Indianapolis Colts as a 4.5-point favorite. So I went into the season thinking that the Titans possibly maybe a scrappy underdog type of team this season. That is not the case. The first 2 weeks for this team have been very ugly. Week 1 in Denver, they had 133 total yards of offense in that game. Week 2, they got destroyed by 14 at home against the Rams, easily dead last in yards per play. The Colts, number 1 in that category through 2 weeks. Titans also allowing a league-high quarterback pressure of 40%. You think that's good for a rookie quarterback in Cam Ward, a guy who's been sacked 11 times in 2 games so far this season? The Colts, this could be a team on the rise. Daniel Jones kind of following a little bit of a similar blueprint to what we saw from Sam Darnold last season when he got his career back on track. This is a team, they're in no position to be playing down to the competition. I think they can smell blood in the water. 4 straight wins for them against the Titans, who maybe have the worst coaching staff in the NFL. So let's back Indy to cover as a 4.5-point favorite. And Jingles, I think this has happened each of the first 2 weeks where me and you were aligned on a pick. You're fading the Titans as well, but in a different way.
Let's pile on the Titans, who, let's say, has the worst offense in football. I think we can say that. 31st in EPA per play, dead last in success rate. Cam Ward has shown flashes of elite top pick talent, but of QBs with 48 plays or more, he's dead last in CPOE, completion percentage, success rate by a mile, adjusted EPA per play per running backs don't matter, and also dead last in yards per play at 3.2. And as you said, just 133 total yards versus Denver in week 1. And Denver was trying to give them that win. If you do remember that game, they don't get into the red zone often. When they do, they got 1 TD so far this year. And I'm expecting Indy to control the clock versus the 29th ranked rush defense in EPA per rush. And this is a Jonathan Taylor game, a Daniel Jones game, going to slow things down. The number 5 most blitzing defense, the Colts, is going to absolutely tee off on a guy who's been sacked, as you mentioned, Joe, 11 times. And now let's add in some injuries. Right tackle, Latham, he was DNP Thursday. He was out week 2, number 7 pick in the 2024 draft, so a significant piece. Right guard Kevin Zeitler was DNP Wednesday, limited Thursday after exiting week 2. So a guy who can't get out of the way of the pressure, who's taken a ton of sacks, has a ton of negative plays, could be down 2 starting O-linemen again. This game also projects as the 5th slowest on the slate, so not a ton of plays. I think this one's going to be very lopsided in terms of time of possession.
Colts win by double digits. Mark it down. Okay, next up, let's go down to Tampa Bay. The New York Jets in town, and some rare support for the Jets from me. I'm going to take Breece Hall to go over his receiving yard total of 23.5. So we've seen the Bucs allow the second most receiving yards to running back so far this season. This is actually a carryover from 2024, where that was a major weakness for them. So I do think this is something that the Jets will be able to exploit. Now, we did see Hall catch 2 passes for 38 yards in week 1. He did not have the same success in week 2. His snaps were cut short in that game due to a blowout against the Buffalo Bills. And this is a guy in Breece Hall. He does have a very high ceiling. Last season, he had 31 or more receiving yards 8 times. This prop was often in the high 20s last season. He is second on the team in targets through 2 games, a massive drop-off at the wide receiver position after Garrett Wilson. So, yeah, I think the Jets are going to get Hall involved and look to exploit that weakness of the Bucs. So we'll take him to go over 23.5 receiving yards. Okay, next up, let's go back to Colts Titans. You like somebody to get into the end zone.
Yeah, who doesn't want more action in this game? And Daniel Jones for a TD plus 185, probably my favorite TD bet of week 3. How are we still getting this price on any quarterback in this offense. Anthony Richardson was down to like plus 140, plus 135 when he was under center, and Daniel Jones should be in that territory, but he's not. So we dabble again. Titans ranked 29th in EPA per rush and now face a number 3 offense in EPA per play. And you have to sell out to stop Jonathan Taylor, who has over 300 yards through 2 weeks. But surprisingly, the Indy running back, who's minus 195 to get a touchdown, has 0 rushing touchdowns on the season. That's kind of strange. Not really, because Daniel Jones has taken 45% of the Colts' red zone carries and 4 of the 6 attempts from inside the 5-yard line. Shane Steichen, kind of ring a bell, helped develop the tush push in Philly when he was the OC, clearly likes using his quarterback in short yardage spots. Last week, ran the QB sneak 3 straight plays. One was nullified by defensive penalty, but they pushed Daniel Jones in. This is a continue buy until this goes below plus 150. Daniel Jones getting it near the goal line and can scramble away too. But it is the same situation in Philly. If it gets tight, it's just going to go to Daniel Jones. Really strange that Jonathan Taylor has 0 touchdowns, but is minus 195 for a TD this week.
Okay, next up, shootout shaping up in Chicago. Shootout shaping up in Chicago. Shootout shaping up in Chicago. Say it 3 times quick at home. It is a lot of fun. I think this is going to be a fun one with the Dallas Cowboys in town. I'm going to take over 50.5 between the Cowboys and the Bears. So 2 awful defenses versus what I will call 2 very capable offenses. 30th and 32nd in yards allowed per play so far on the season. Dallas has been awful on third down. Chicago has been especially bad in the red zone. Go back to last week. Chicago allowed 52 points versus the Lions. The Cowboys allowed 37 points against the New York Giants, making Russell Wilson look like prime Russell Wilson. That's the best game he's had in half a decade, thrown for 450 yards. Now, on the offensive side, this is a must-win game for offensive wizard Ben Johnson. You do not want to be 0-3, especially with the Dallas Cowboys coming into town. So look for a good offensive performance from them. On the Cowboys side, I do think they can have a big game through the air. Chicago dead last in yards allowed per pass attempt. Dak off to a pretty strong start. Expect a lot of points in Chicago. Okay, next up, let's go to Cleveland. The Packers in town, and you have a touchdown score.
This one has a lot of moving pieces, but let's go through them. Tucker Kraft for a TD at plus 200. Jaden Reed's out, broke his collarbone on a touchdown grab that was nullified by penalty just to add salt in the wound. But there's opportunities for more targets to go around, and tight end Tucker Kraft stands out as the best value, I think. Now, he did tweak his knee at practice on Thursday, but they're saying it's minor. So it's obviously something to watch. We'll see how the Friday stuff goes. But to get a guy in a passing offense for plus 200 for a TD. He's led all Packers skill position players in snap share for 2 straight weeks, 90% last week, and posted team high 79% route share participation in week 2. This is one of the worst rotations in wide receiver for fantasy guys. You all know it. It's an absolute disaster. It might clear out now that Jaden Reed's out, but it's a hard one to pick. But it's Tucker Kraft, who was a guy who was not getting off the field. He's got TDs in both games. This is just a spot where it's like, here's your number, plus 200. I'm happy to go for a guy who leads his team in TDs, yards, catches, targets, target share, and red zone targets. It's just a big number. So I'm taking the risk on the injury scare. And one thing that we have noticed, you have to pass versus Cleveland. Derrick Henry, I was on his rushing touchdowns last week. Baltimore was terrified to run in the red zone versus this Cleveland defense through 2 weeks. Henry, 23 yards on 11 carries last week versus this defense. Chase Brown, 21 carries for 43 yards versus the Browns in week 1. You have to pass, and I think this is a spot where pass catchers are going to succeed in a game versus the Browns, who we saw fall apart in the second half in week 2. Tucker Kraft plus 200 is a good one. If he's out, then you go like Luke Musgrave for plus 300. And I think in the wide receiver point, I think you could do a lot worse than Romeo Doubs at plus 200, especially if Kraft is banged up.
Okay, let's go back to Chicago for my favorite prop bet of the weekend. It is CD Lamb, longest reception over 25.5 yards. So check this out. He already has catches of 32 and 33 through 2 games this season. And check this out. With Dak as his quarterback, remember Dak, he season ended at the halfway point last year. But with Dak thrown to him, he's gone over this number of a longest reception of 25.5 in 9 straight games. Now look at the opponent, Chicago's best corner, Pro Bowler Jalen Johnson. He is out indefinitely. They've been bad with him in the lineup. Think of how bad they'll be without him. 3 separate receivers for the Lions topped this versus Chicago last week. 2 different Vikings did the week before that. So look for CD to catch at least one big one. Okay, next up, a rare spread bet from Jingles, a meat and potatoes bet for pretty good looking game here. Broncos Chargers, with the Chargers favored by 2.5.
Yeah, little lighter on player props outside of the touchdowns this week, but do like the Chargers with this number at 2.5. A little expensive, -115, but numbers going to 3. I'm buying the Chargers plus 310 to win the division before it starts. They knock off Patrick Mahomes. Then, in what could have been a letdown spot going from Brazil to Las Vegas, uh, knock off the Raiders, who scored 0 TDs last week. It's their home opener. And meanwhile, Denver, who, let's be honest, should be 2-0 after that weird, what's that, leverage situation with the field goal in week 2. They've played Cam Ward and Daniel Jones, and Daniel Jones just threw for over 300 yards and took just 1 sack versus this scary Denver defense. And if you go back to week 1, Tennessee had a very good chance at winning that game. Denver did everything they could. The pass catching trio of Ladd, who was upgraded to full this week, QJ, and Keenan Allen has been electric. This has been one of the best yards per play offenses in football. Now, the scary thing is, this team's only going to get better. Currently, they're the worst running football team in all of football, 32nd in EPA per rush. Najee looked a little better, so hopefully the rush game gets going. But another angle here, and maybe people don't love to hear, but Bo Nix has struggled in 6 of 8 quarters. He had a first good half last week, but in the second half, he goes 8 for 12, 88 yards and an interception, and just 176 yards, 25 for 40 passing with 2 interceptions in week 1 versus Tennessee. He has the lowest passer rating on throws of 10 plus yards and now has to face a Chargers secondary who that is their bread and butter. Passes of 10 or more in that charge versus that Chargers secondary. QBs 4 for 20, 3 interceptions, 32.5 passer rating per PFF. Geno Smith just last week on throws of 10 or more, crazy accurate quarterback. He went 0 for 12 with 3 picks on balls that traveled more than 10 yards. So I think Nix could really fall on his face. I think this closes at the 3, but I'm buying the offense. I think the running game gets better, and I think this is a good defensive matchup for that Chargers secondary versus Bo Nix, who wants to play a little reckless right now, and it could burn him in week 3.
Okay, time to bring it home. Headed back to Chicago. I got a lot of action on this game, a high-scoring game where I think a lot of props will probably go over, especially for wide receivers, especially for Rome Adunze. We're going to take him to go over 4.5 receptions. All about that volume in what looks like potentially a breakout season for him. Rookie season, a little bit of a disappointment. Not the case so far in 2025 for him. His 20 targets easily lead the Chicago Bears offense, and that's resulted in 6 and 7 receptions in the first 2 games. Dallas already 31st in opponent completion percentage. As previously stated, I do think this is going to be a high-scoring game where both teams will be throwing a lot. Okay, there you have it. Our 9 best bets for the Sunday afternoon NFL games. If you're looking for best bets for the Sunday night game between the Chiefs and the Giants, we're going to have a standalone video up for that right here on the Covers YouTube channel. Make sure you are subscribed. Enjoy all the games on Sunday. Best of luck with your bets.